Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando Leduc, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, back with another one, Spaghetti on the Wall. Deidra Haynes is in the house. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Fantastic.
Good.
So we met because of Jen Gore.
Yes.
Lovely person. And she introduced us, and I was like, well, we got to get her on the podcast and let's chop it up. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. She's one of my favorite business coaches.
Heck yeah. She's smashing it. And so I'm going to give you a quick little intro, and then we're going to do a little backstory. So Attorney Deidra Haynes is dedicated to fathers' rights and is a dedicated fathers' rights lawyer and personal injury attorney. Let me back that up. Attorney Deidra Haynes is a dedicated fathers' rights lawyer and personal injury attorney, recognized for her passionate advocacy in family law and employment discrimination cases. As the founder of D&H Law, she focuses on protecting the rights of fathers and individuals facing racial discrimination, drawing deeply from her own lived experiences. Early in her career, Deidra fought against a corporation for racial discrimination and sexual harassment, giving her a profound understanding of the fear, frustration, and resilience her clients face.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. Lot to unpack.
Yeah.
2-minute backstory on how you got where you got. How did you end up here? What were the epiphanies that you were like, this is what I want to do and why I want to do it?
Well, I was a high school dropout. I was homeless most of my teenage life. Went back to skip the 11th grade, went to the 12th, got a scholarship, had 2 children, lost the scholarship, went back to school, then had a dream I was supposed to be in law school, and moved here to Indianapolis, Indiana, and got into law school.
And now you're on the Inc. 5000.
On the Inc. 5000.
So you said you were homeless?
I was homeless. I was homeless throughout high school, and then I was homeless another time while in college as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so give me the thought process here, right? Because a lot of you can go two different ways. Mm-hmm. You can allow your circumstances to define you, and obviously you didn't, right? And you chose to go, no, this is not the end of my story. This is just the beginning. So give me the thought process there.
Well, simply the thought process was I didn't want to be homeless anymore. I had to walk the streets. I lived in boxes. I know what it feels like to be a homeless person on the street. And that fear of, will I grow up and remain this way, put a drive under me, put a fire under me. And there was nothing that I was going to do to stay in that position. Now, I must add, I got to give God credit for this because I don't believe I did it on my own. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not religious, but I believe during that process, the Spirit of the Lord helped me. I did a lot of praying. I didn't belong to a church. Homeless people usually don't go to church, but God can hear you whether you're inside 4 walls of a church wall, 4 walls of a building, or whether you're walking the street homeless. And I just believe that I got a lot of guidance from my spiritual being, and also just the hard work and determination that I will not remain and I will not let my circumstances determine who I am. Throughout that process, a lot of people don't know is that I also was in and out of juvenile detention. I have a criminal record. I had to sit before the Indiana bar to get admitted into the practice of law to become a licensed attorney. So I wasn't a good girl at all. I had to fight my way through to get where I am, Armando. But I fought because I was so angry because I didn't know my biological father. And that anger built up in me, that the anger carried me everywhere.
And so now you are all in on fathers' rights.
Absolutely.
Tell me why that. How did you get to that?
Absolutely. I didn't know my biological father growing up. I didn't meet him until I was 42 years of age. And there were many times I would ask my mother, who was my father. I wanted to meet my father. And she would always use the phrase, I'm your mom and your dad. Well, we know that that can't be true. But I went through a lot of abandonment issues, rejection issues. I even went through issues with my marital status. My first husband was 21 years older than me. Was I looking for a husband, or was I really looking for a father? Of course, we stayed married 11 years. We did get a divorce, but I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot about who I was. And my drive to be able to fight for children, and specifically for fathers wanting to see their children, came from my own rejection issues and came from my own abandonment issues. I never wanted to see another baby girl or baby boy go through the struggles I went through, because it is real struggles when a father are not in their children's lives.
Tell me about that. Tell me, what you've seen in terms of when a father is present and then when a father is not present.
Yeah, well, let me start with my own self, right? I want to be very honest on this podcast. I think this will help send a message to mothers who are may be holding the children over their father's heads. I was in and out of love situations. I didn't know the value of who I was. And because of that, I married someone 21 years older than myself. And I just did not love myself enough to stand up for myself. I didn't love myself enough to have values. And because of that, I fell in love with all the wrong men. Why? Because I didn't have that father figure to show me and to lead me the way that I needed to go. But thank God, as I began to mature into, out of adolescence and out of high school and into college, I found several spiritual fathers. I have 2 spiritual fathers who really helped me through the process, which was Apostle Leon and then Apostle Ivory Hopkins. And they held my hand through the process. They really did act as a biological father, although they were spiritual.
What was it like when you met your dad at 42?
Yeah, it was a horrible experience, to be honest with you, Armando. It was not a great experience. I called and I introduced myself. I called his home, and his wife at the time answered the phone, and she said, everyone knew me back home as Nikki, right? That's my middle name, Nicole. Everyone knew me as Nikki. I said, hey, my name is Deidra Haynes. I believe that Lee Anderson is my father. And she responded and said, Nikki, I know exactly who you are. We've been knowing who you are. Your father is on his deathbed, and I prefer that you don't contact him again, and hung up. And at that moment, all the rejection and the abandonment issues that I had went through from a young child, it rushed me. I could literally feel it as if it was happening all over again. So I know what children are going through. Whether the mothers don't know, maybe the fathers don't know, but I know from firsthand that it is a devastating trauma that children go through when their biological father is not around.
How has divorce changed now compared to what it was, I guess in the 90s and the 2000s?
I really believe that there was this stigma that had truth to it, that women were favored more in the courts, especially during a divorce. Let the children go with the women. There is this rumor or this bias that has been lingering on for so long. And I do believe maybe that was the truth, right? Because children usually were given to the mothers, but it's not so much now. At least I can speak for the state of Indiana. The state of Indiana, I really do appreciate our judges. We are really looking at, in the state of Indiana at least, is the father present? Has the father been around to be able to make medical decisions in the child's life, school decisions? And if we can prove those factors that this father has been present, we at the law office of Deidra Haynes, we're going to fight for 50-50, no matter what. If we don't get the 50-50, so be it. We'll get something, but we're going to start off 50-50 because fathers have an equal right to raise their children just as much as a mother. And it angers me that fathers just don't know their rights because they have lived off of this rumor or this stigma from 1990. And when you are living off of that rumor, it carries on to the next generation where many fathers will say, this is a mother's state. or whatever state they live in. This is a mother state. And I'm telling you, it is not true. Courts are leaning more towards equal parenting.
Yeah. Tell me why a father would not be able to get 50-50.
Sure. Let's say that that child was born and one, in my situation, the mother never told the father you had a child. Then let's just say that sometime a year, 2, 3 years pass and he finds out, is this my baby? Well, now 3 years has passed and this child is 3 years old, but the child has never been around this man, right? Who is now the father. And so when he begins to take mother to court, what's going to come up is, where have you been? Now, one of the arguments is I didn't know, but that's not a good enough argument because the courts are not just going to throw an innocent child, 3 years of age, and just hand them off to a man who is the father because he doesn't know that person. The father doesn't know the child. So we have what we call here in Indiana a phase-in parenting time, where the child and father begins to phase in and to begin to mend their relationship. In a situation like that, 50-50 is not going to cut it. It's not going to happen. So our main goal is to get him parenting time, which is every other weekend, get him holidays, they split the holidays and things of that sort. But eventually, he can go back and fight for 50-50. It's a harder argument because he didn't start off that way. Right. But I always tell my fathers, be as active as you can. Anytime she wants you to take her weekend, take her weekend. Because we want to build a case as the days and months and the years go on that she's given up her weekends. And if she's given up her weekends more than she shouldn't because she wants to go to the club or she wants to, have a girls' night out, that is going to work for his advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a story of somebody, and you don't have to get into details, obviously, but tell me a story of somebody that you helped and what it was like for them through that process and how you were able to get them, to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I have many clients, but one client that comes to mind is a client who just recently wrote a book and dropped the book off from us fighting his case. And I won't mention any names, of course, but he was fighting against, of course, the mother, two baby boys, and he wanted to see his children. Now, he was a military vet. He did have some issues in regards to PTSD and things of that sort, which is common. Having a mental health condition or disorder does not rule you off first, even for having 50-50. As long as we can prove that you are taking your prescribed medication, you're not abusing it. And in this case, he had hired 3 or 4 different lawyers. I think I was his 5th. Now that does send a red flag to any lawyer. You're like, okay, I don't want to be the 5th lawyer. It seems like he may be, maybe a problem client. But I personally did his consultation. And I believe that I'm not always right, Armando, but I believe that when I begin to speak to a father, I'm listening to his heart cry. And when he is saying, Deidra, I'm doing everything I need to do. I'll surrender my guns. He never got in trouble for having guns, but there was an issue in that case where mother was like, well, he has PTSD and, he's come from the military. He has these guns. He didn't have no issue with it. He had no issues with guns, right? He owned them, but it was, I believe, an unreasonable fear that this mother was using as a tactic. And I told him personally, don't give up your guns. We're going to fight. But when he said, Deidra, these guns mean nothing to me for my children. And when he was willing to give up the guns, what he had the absolute right to bear arms, I knew that I was going to be able to fight for him and get him the custody time that he needed. And he did get a little more than just his parenting time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so what do you think is in divorce when it becomes so contentious?
Yeah.
Why is that? Is it because it's a tit for tat thing? People are wanting to be petty for no reason? Like, why can't it stay amicable?
Well, you know what? I hate to describe it this way, but family law court is Jerry Springer. It is Jerry Springer. You are going to get people fighting over silverware. When divorce happens, it is worse than a criminal case, because I did criminal law as well. because individuals begin to fight over everything. And then the children become possession. And that's the most horrible experience that anyone can experience, whether it's from the father's side or the mother's side. Of course, we are a father's rights law firm. So over 80% of our clientele, we represent fathers and men. And we often see that fathers are first unrepresented, and mothers believe that they have the right to everything. And lo and behold, if there's girls, they believe, no, dad can't raise the girls. Dads know how to do hair. And if they don't, dad has enough money to go take the baby to the beautician to get her hair done. But in my experience, this is not always the case for your listeners that's listening. Not all mothers are bitter. But again, when you're running a father's rights law firm, you often see that more often than not. And so we fight, we prepare, and we litigate, and we become a voice for the voiceless. Because when they don't have a voice to stand up to the mother and her threats, we become his voice for him.
Yeah. How long has been the shortest case that you've had? And then what's been the longest case you've had?
Yeah, so the shortest has been 61 days. In the state of Indiana, for the first 60 days, nothing can happen. It's called, it's like a resting period, a cooling down period is what we call it in the state of Indiana. And when everyone can get along, on the 61st day, that petition can be signed by the judge. That's the shortest, because within 60 days, nothing's going to happen anyway. The longest is three years. Yeah. And I know colleagues who are fighting longer than that. So it can be very time consuming. It can cost a lot of money when individuals are fighting and arguing, you can't get along. Now, of course, we go to mediation, but when mediation fails, the fight just starts again.
Damn. And so 3 years, you're saying?
Years. Yeah. See, and that's why I believe family law is a great area of law for lawyers, because it can go on. It's not like a criminal case. Criminal cases, there is a deadline where it has to come to an end, right? You just can't have a defendant just dragging on. Personal injury cases have statutes of limitations. It comes to an end. Well, not in family law. It can go on and on and on. And we don't like it, and we will fight. And there are times in my office, Armando, where we will sometimes waive certain fees, certain billables, because we can tell when mother is trying to drag our client out of money. And when that becomes obvious, we begin to fight even harder, where we say, we're not going to charge for this discovery. We're not going to charge for this deposition, because I refuse to let a mother drag a father's pockets to the ground. It's just not going to happen. And the reason why I refuse to do that is because I see myself. I see myself in that baby girl who is saying, oh my God, I hope daddy gets something in court. I know what I went through. Rejection is horrible. Abandonment is even worse. And so we help our clients any way we can. And sometimes that is not charging them what we need to charge them.
Good on you for that. So funny, because these questions I'm asking you are already things that I'm already asking you. How do you help fathers fight for the paternal rights when the system seems stacked against them?
Preparation. That's the first thing. The first thing I always tell fathers is what I want you to do. I want you to gather text messages, voicemails, emails, any screenshots. Because sometimes when you're in a bitter argument going back and forth, people begin to admit stuff like, I ain't want the kids anyway. Or they begin to admit things such as, yeah, so what, you had the kids for 6 weeks. Well, that's going to be beneficial for us, because it's going to prove that you're not always with this child. Dad is spending a lot of time with the child. There are cases where that recently I can think about a year ago where custody was given to mom. The children were supposed to go to school from mom's house. But guess what was happening? She gave the children to dad. Child support is still coming out of dad's pocket. But you know what I told father? I said, this is chess and not checkers. Let it roll for a little bit. Because as soon as you argue that let's stop child support and take her to court, she's going to grab that baby back. And we don't have enough evidence to say, maybe I should be the full-time parent. And that's exactly what is happening. Sometimes it costs our client in the pockets at first. in order for the bleeding to stop. Because many times fathers don't know that they can go back and modify custody arrangements. They just kind of like, okay, well, I've been on child support. I haven't seen my baby in so long. They are happy for their child to be at their house every night, but they don't know this.
Go back.
Go ahead.
You can go back and
absolutely
rearrange the custody.
Absolutely. It's called modification.
Is that just in Indiana or is that everywhere?
Oh, everywhere. Yeah. You can modify custody, parenting time issues all across the state, all across the United States.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
When you were facing racial discrimination and sexual harassment, can you talk about how that went down?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about it. I can't give details because I was actually the individual that went through the racial discrimination and sued a company for it, and sexual discrimination as well, I must add. During those situations, Armando, I know how it feels to be isolated and feel lonely. As an African American woman, let me just be honest. I live in the state of Indiana. Everyone's not racist, right? But I have experienced a great deal of racism here living in Indiana. And it can be, and it has been very hard for me. It has been very scary for me at times, but I fought through it. And that's what gave me the ability back in Illinois as well to sue a company that I was experiencing that with. I know what it feels to be lonely. I know what it also feels to be discriminated against because I was a employment discrimination lawyer as well for 5 years while still doing family law. And so I know when a woman complains about I'm being sexually harassed, oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes women are supposed to just sweep it under the rug. And many times they do. Why? Because in corporate America, especially in our field as lawyers, there's a male dominant field, and you're scared. You don't want to be, you don't want to be outcast, and you don't want to be on an island by yourself. I experienced both that in sexual harassment and also racial discrimination. So how does that relate to fathers? Because it's gender, right? They feel like they are being discriminated based on their gender in the courts. And so I have to take all of what I have learned from my own experience and say no more. I know how it feels to be lonely. I know how it feels to be isolated. And I know how it feels to believe that the system is stacked against you. And so I have used not only the knowledge that I have as a legal mind, but also my personal struggles, my personal trauma to give it all that I have in that courtroom. Because I never want to see another person experience the loneliness. And I'm telling you, being racially discriminated against and sexually harassed, I think it's the worst experience anyone can experience. I'm not a father, but I have seen big burly men cry on my shoulders, fall on the floor in my law office crying because they wanted to fight for their babies because they felt lonely and isolated as if the system was not going to help them.
Yeah. Super sad, but I'm glad you're doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
How do people find you? Do you only work in Indiana or are you licensed in other states?
No, I'm only here in the state of Indiana, only licensed here. So if they did want to contact me, the number is 317-982-7396, or they can visit the website, which is www.dnhlawllc.com. Or just Google my name, Deidra Haynes, and I'll come up.
I love it. I love it so much. Deidra, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate what you're doing. We'll have some conversations offline.
Okay.
If you guys are in the Indiana area and you need some help, reach out and follow Deidra on her journey. Are you putting out any content that has to do with, the overcoming of the things that you've gone through? And
actually, I have. I put out. I published a book. I believe I published it in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And that book is called The Process of an Undelivered Prophet. And it talks about how it's a spiritual book, but it talks about how I had a call in my life. It talks about how I didn't have a father. It talks about how my father being absent from my life really destroyed my first marriage because I didn't know how to balance out, is this a father or is this a husband? And it goes into great, great detail. So that book is out there. I do want to do more in regards to my life. And that's one of the reasons why I went to theology school, because I stopped practicing for a while. I stopped practicing law for 2 years and went to theology school. But I said, you know what, my heart and my passion is in the law. But I would love to do more things in regards to my personal life, because I think it helps people understand who I am as a litigator and as a family law litigator fighting for fathers.
Yeah, I think people could benefit from hearing stories about overcoming.
Yeah,
I think, and especially these days when people are kind of struggling with a lot of things that you can learn to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Deidra, thank you so much for being here. That was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by LaDuke Entertainment. For all of your production needs, podcasts, organic social, videos, we got you. Keep listening, keep watching, and we'll see y'all next time.